Good afternoon and welcome to my studio in downtown Macon, Georgia. Today I'm going to make a bridal bouquet and I'm going to be using lots of different textures of flowers and colors. It's going to be a dark and moody bouquet. The couple is actually going to get married on top of a mountain this week, and so it's going to be rustic, and I'm going to use a lot of different texture to get the feel of what they want. So I'm going to use seeded eucalyptus, which I always love to use, silver dollar eucalyptus. I'm going to use these beautiful little chrysanthemums. I don't normally like to use these, but these sort of remind me of dahlias. This safari sunset. I'm using my hanging amaranthus, some beautiful blush tone roses, as well as black magic rose, and this gorgeous astilbe. And I'm going to be using things I've cut out of my yard, which to me always makes everything seem so much better. I'm going to be using Laura Peplum. Couldn't think. Laura Peplum. I love the red on the greenery. I'm going to be using Illy Agnes and also Confederate jasmine that I just cut right off of my back patio. So I'm going to start with a little bit of my seeded eucalyptus. I'm going to take all the bottom leaves off and just leave the top part, mostly the berries. But this will just give my greenery a little base. I'm going to maybe go ahead and add in some Laura Peplum. I kind of have to cut it along as I go. When you make a bouquet, you definitely don't want to have any greenery below the top of the bouquet. Nothing that the bride or anyone will hold. You want that to all be taken off. So I'm just going to start putting everything in my left hand very loosely, and then I just kind of start to turn it. So I'm going to get a good greenery base before I add any flowers. I'm going to have a little more of this seeded eucalyptus. And then I'm going to go in with one of these chrysanthemums. And then I'm not really 100% sure what this greenery is called, but it's a real pretty little filler. It's got little burgundy and white flowers on it, and so I just love it. It's going to give me the rustic feel I need. I'm going to add that. I'm going to turn. I'm going to start putting in some of my red roses. So you just want to do a bouquet. You want to just put it in your left hand loosely, and then just keep turning it. I'll add some of this safari sunset, and I'm going to add this in groups, just so it'll have more of an impact. Sometimes when it's a little teeny flower like that, you just want to maybe have it in groups so that it'll give it a little better impact. Then I'm going to come in with some of my silver dollar eucalyptus. You want to make sure the bouquets always have movement. And so you always want to be able to kind of hold it up and look at it while you're working. Then I'm going to put these spray roses in. Add some more of this Laura Peplum. And make sure I kind of space out my lighter color flowers with my darker colored roses. I don't want this to end up looking so spotted. I'd rather there be like a little blush story going on, because primarily it's going to be dark and red. Lower. So go back to this green. I love this. I've got some hanging amaranthus. I'm going to add that at the end. I'm loving the different shapes and textures of these flowers. This is what is going to give this movement, this bouquet. And you always want to kind of just keep holding onto it loosely and just kind of letting it relax a little bit. You don't want to have all your flowers at the same height either. And this way you can, when you have it in your hand like this allows you to be able to pull some things up and push some things down too. And if I end up covering up some of my flowers with some of these pieces of greenery, I'll just go back and snip them off. I have a little bit of this Elaeagnus. I love the long branches of the Elaeagnus, and my husband does not so much like Elaeagnus. We have got the tallest hedge of Elaeagnus at our house, and it is literally almost 2 stories high. And I came home one day and someone had cut it back and it looked like a train track. I just had to go to my neighbor next door and just say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. We're gonna have to move out of town right now. But it did grow back, but I love it for these little wispy things right here. It is one of my favorites. So, I'm gonna add a whole little red section over here. I'm gonna maybe go ahead and add some of this hanging amaranthus. I don't want this to overwhelm. I love the bronze color of this. I could also use the burgundy of the amaranthus, but I like the texture difference with this bronze. And this is not really, this is upright. This is not necessarily hanging, but it's easier to manipulate here as well. So I'll keep turning. These bouquets get to the point where it's a little hard to hold them. And you don't want to make it so large that the bride can't hold it, because it definitely can happen. And you know, also it depends, you have to keep in mind the size of the bride. If there's like a little petite bride, you don't want to give them this tremendous bouquet. Okay, so I'm keeping to add, and sometimes when you put in this amaranthus, like a really heavy thing like that, sometimes I have to get like a rose or something a little heavier to kind of get that to stand up a little better, to like prop it up. Same thing with floppy greenery sometimes. I'm gonna let it hang a little bit, but I might have to do some greenery, maybe some berries. These berries are nice and sturdy. Sometimes the seeded eucalyptus berries are not, the stems are a little thinner than this right here, but I love this because it's, seeded eucalyptus can tend to flop over sometimes also, but this is good and sturdy. So I'm gonna kind of manipulate that just a tad. I'm gonna go ahead and add some more of this too, because that's pretty sturdy. So I'm just gonna keep spinning around to add my roses. I'm loving the way this is turning out already. Always making sure that there are not any leaves that will be underneath where I'm holding it. And I'm just going lower and lower with my flowers. And I'll be able to adjust it a little bit. Also to make sure the thorns are all off. I kind of just got hit by one just a little bit. I'll look at it to see if I see any holes, which I do see a hole. I need some white right in here, so the beauty of holding it loosely is that you can just kind of sink a rose down in there without hurting the feel or look of the bouquet. And I'm gonna need a few more right here too. I don't want it to be dotted looking. I'd rather it be, shove that in there. So yeah, there we go. That's so pretty. So I'm gonna keep adding. I'm getting to the point where I barely can hold it, so I'm not gonna add so much more. And I am a big girl, so if I can't hold it, then I can't expect anyone else to be able to hold it. So I am gonna add some more Astilbe. I love this, it is so delicate. And this just came into my wholesaler today. So the greenery is always kind of wilty looking, but you gotta be real careful with it. It needs to be in the cooler all the time. I just love the wispiness it gives. open this. So I want to make sure that I'm able to add some Confederate jasmine little tendrils. I have this growing all over my patio, and I've never really used it in flowers. And I'm part of a floral group, which many of us are, and someone was talking about what is your favorite vine to use, and a lot of people said Confederate jasmine. And it's shocking to me sometimes, as much as I've done flowers, that I've never thought about using it. So I have been gangbuster using it lately. I love to use smilax, even in bouquets as well, but this is a really pretty texture to me. And it's just a little different and unexpected. And it will trail beautifully. And it gets kind of tangled, so you gotta watch out for it. And I might just kind of have it going all crazy all over the bouquet. I love that too. So, to cover the bottom of the bouquet, like you don't want to see all these flower stems, so then I'm going to go back in with my greenery and just make sure that I don't see any stems showing of like roses, for example. I'm going to make sure it's nice and covered. These berries do a beautiful job. You have to cut them a little bit shorter than you normally would. It'd help if I could find my clippers. So I'm gonna prop that up like that. Pop off these bottom 2 pieces. And I'm gonna go ahead and tie this off. I like to tie everything off with pipe cleaners. You could use straight wire, you can use zip ties. I like a pipe cleaner, personally. And it's easy that way to cover. The ribbon always will cover it. So I'm gonna wrap this jasmine around it too, so pretty. So my pipe cleaners are right here. I like to use green just because it's the color of the stems. You could use white if your ribbon is white, but I just would go ahead and say to use green. I just like to tie it once, and then I like to let the bouquet sort of relax like that so that I can see if I need to fix any parts of it. But for now, I think it is ready to be tied. To really examine it. A lot of times I'll go stand in front of the mirror and hold it and like look at it as if, I was the bride holding it. Let's see. I might add a little more greenery right down here. But also with pipe cleaners, if you are adding things, you can just put another pipe cleaner on top. You don't have to try to untie it and add it inside the pipe cleaner. Just add another pipe cleaner. It'll be fine. So I've nestled that greenery up in there, and I'll just get another pipe cleaner. For this. And to tie this, I'm going to use this gorgeous hand-dyed silk ribbon from Hannah's hand-dyed silk ribbon. I love to use them. They've got the most gorgeous ribbon in the world. And this bouquet kind of to me calls for like a flowy ribbon. Okay, so now it's time to cut my bouquet. And the one thing you want to make sure that you do when you cut your bouquet, you do not want to cut it too short. It's better to cut it too long, and then you can always recut. So this is a European hand-tied bouquet, and so it's supposed to be able to stand up on its own. On its own. I am from Alabama, but anyway, I'm going to cut this and see if it will stand up. And I'm just going to cut it about a hand's length, a little more than a hand's length down. I'm just going to cut the stems right on the ground. Just going to cut it straight across while it's still fanning out like this. I'm not going to tie a tight ribbon around the whole bottom of the bouquet like you would do if you had a stylized bouquet. still be able to shift some of the flowers should I need to. Try to cut it straight across, and that way it should be able to stand up when I fan it out. Ta-da! All right, so this is gonna not need to stand up because the bride's gonna be holding it. Just wanted to show you that. So now I'm just gonna lay it down and tie the ribbon around it. I'll still be able to adjust some of my stems afterwards. So where did my ribbon go? Here it is. This gorgeous gray hand-dyed silk ribbon. So Hannah's Silks they have every color known to man. They've got two-tone colors, but I love to use their ribbon. So I'm just going to make sure I have it in half, and I'm just going to start by, at the very top, I'm going to cover up the mechanics, which are, in this case, the pipe cleaner. I can also go and cut the ends of the pipe cleaner out if I can't cover it all the way, but I should be able to cover it up. So I'm just gonna start wrapping it very tight at just the top. I like the bouquet to be able to, stems to be able to still fan out a little bit at the bottom so that it'll hold its shape. I like it to kind of be more like that because when you tighten the bottom, it does affect the way the bouquet looks. So I like to try to keep it as natural as possible. And I found that just tying at the top tightly helps that. I will definitely need more ribbon than this, but this is just a start. If you wanted to, since silk ribbon is pretty expensive, you could also get a similar color ribbon to tie underneath your silk ribbon if you didn't want to waste all this precious silk ribbon kind of being covered up. So I'll just tie that in a knot, make sure that it's covered everything. So see, now I'll still be able to have the shape of my bouquet. I will have to go back and kind of trim this up too because, I mean, that doesn't, just because it stood up is the way a European hand-tied bouquet does, but doesn't mean the bride wants it to look like that, nor does she want it to stand up on its own. She just wants it to be pretty for her photographs and for her day. So anything that's still sticking out, or you want to pull in, you can still manipulate at this point and shove things in more than what they are. Because since you've arranged it this way, you still have room for the flowers to shift, should you need them to. And I need mine to just a little bit. So now I'm gonna get another piece of the ribbon and I'm going to continue to tie it. And I think I'm gonna let streamers hang down with this, just because this is the nature of this sort of natural bouquet. So I'm gonna allow probably 2 streamers, but I'm going to just tie it. I'm just gonna go down just a little bit more on the stems, just to make sure the bouquet's secure. And I do see a little piece of a pipe cleaner sticking out down here. I'm just gonna cut that out. And I am gonna cut the stems at the bottom to make sure that they're all the same length. And also this way it can be transported in a glass jar without fear of it not being in water. And there's a little piece of pipe cleaner right here that I'm just going to just pop out without hurting the ribbon. And I'm gonna add one more piece of ribbon, and we're gonna call this a day. So this couple's getting married on top of a mountain. It's just gonna be their family. And this is just gonna be so pretty with the beautiful scenic mountainous backdrop. Can't wait to see the pictures. Y'all will have to stay tuned for the photographs. Just gonna cut those just a tad. I don't mind them being different lengths, but I think that's just a little too long. You want them to be in proportion at least. And then I'm going to cut my stems. I'm gonna squeeze the stems right now just to try to get them all the same, so I can try to cut them all the same length. It's kind of loud. And there you go. Thank you so much. European hand-tied bouquet.